Yasmin, thank you so very much. We, of course, are keeping a very close watch on that airplane in that South Florida airport. I want to bring in Glenn Kirschner, former federal prosecutor and an MSNBC legal analyst. Glenn, good morning. Vaughn was talking about the team, Trump legal team, trying to determine what their next steps are in this case. What are the legal steps that this team is looking to carry out?
Well, the first legal battle that they will likely take up will involve whatever conditions the judge might set on Donald Trump once he is released pending trial. I think the most robust argument that we may see tomorrow, legal argument in court, Jose, is if the judge decides that he needs to put some restrictions on Donald Trump's speech or on his posts. And I think that's a discussion that should be had, because in recent days we have seen Donald Trump throw these disinformation bombs into the public square about the very judge who will be presiding over his case. That is something that a defendant ordinarily wouldn't do, and it's something a court can order a defendant not to do. Donald Trump said, Judge Marchand, the presiding judge, hates me. That is very likely untrue. He then said that Alvin Bragg handpicked Judge Marchand to preside over my case. That is absolutely untrue. That's not the way judicial assignments are made. And then he said what is perhaps the most damaging. He said Judge Marchand, quote, railroaded Alan Weisselberg, my chief financial officer, into pleading guilty by inferentially coercing him into a guilty plea. That is directly alleging that the judge engaged in misconduct, if not flat out obstruction of justice. A defendant cannot be saying these things to try to poison the jury pool that will sit in judgment of him, Donald Trump. So I think this is what we're going to hear a lot of discussion about in court tomorrow, the first legal battle that will be waged.
So, Glenn, I mean, according to our sources, and the former president has said that publicly, that after he goes to Manhattan and is arraigned and indicted and goes through the process, he goes back to Mar-a-Lago, where tomorrow night he's going to be giving a speech. Is that something that tomorrow in the afternoon the judge in this case could deal with?
Yeah, what a great question. I think if the judge chooses to put some narrowly tailored limitations on what Donald Trump can and can't say, that certainly will not preclude or prevent him from giving, for example, campaign speeches. He will also be allowed to say things like, you know, I'm innocent of the charges. I'm going to defend myself vigorously. I will be found not guilty. All of that, I think, is protected by his free speech rights, his First Amendment, you know, free speech guarantees and protections. But what I suspect, Jose, is if the judge puts some narrowly tailored restrictions in place, do we really expect Donald Trump to abide by them or violate them? If he violates them, I suspect he'll be back in front of the judge promptly to see if the judge needs to ratchet up the conditions on his speech.
And what would a ratcheting up of conditions look like? In other words, what are the repercussions if he just decides not to follow that judge's orders?
You know, a judge could place greater restrictions. For example, a judge can say, listen, you obviously can't be trusted to abide by the conditions set for you by the court. So now I'm going to prohibit you from making any public comments about your case at all, or posting anything on the internet about your case at all. Now, where is the final stop on ratcheting up conditions for a defendant who steadfastly refuses to abide by the conditions set for him by the judge? It is pretrial detention. Now, I don't know that anybody expects we'll ever get there, but the other thing that's in play, Jose, if Donald Trump repeatedly violates conditions set by the judge, it would be contempt of court.
Glenn Kirschner, always a pleasure. I thank you very much for your time. Good to see you, my friend. Much more when we're back in just 60 seconds, including how New York City law enforcement is stepping up security as the former president gets ready to turn himself in. Plus, there are other legal risks Donald Trump is facing. The case's former Attorney General Bill Barr says is the most dangerous, and what Barr thinks about the former president potentially testifying.
Generally, I think it's a bad idea to go on the stand, and I think it's a particularly bad idea for Trump because he lacks all self-control, and it'd be very difficult to prepare him.